Merry meet and welcome to our stream, everybody. This is Ariel, and we are streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. And I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope you're having a fabulous holiday season. I am super glad to be with you here today. We are streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. Moderating today on YouTube are the lovely Dre and the lovely Chad, and moderating on Twitch is the lovely Jason. And we're here every Wednesday doing some kind of witchy something or other. And let's see, we are going to be dark on Sunday because of New Year's Day. Just a little reminder there. Normally we stream from Tuesday through Sunday every week, but this week we will be gone on January 1st. That's Sunday. We, like I said, are streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. We have chat threads open on each of those streams. And if you have any questions for me, you can put them right in the chat thread, and I will get to them by the end of the stream today. I don't have any premiere scheduled. Sorry, I'm just getting back into the swing of things. I'm a little out of it. I had a really, really nice holiday, though, and I hope you did as well. If you would like to give a donation, you can do that by going to paypal.me/arielgatoga, paypal.me/arielgatoga. If you're watching live on YouTube, you could also use the super sticker or super chat if you feel like giving a donation. If you're watching on a restream on YouTube, you could use a super thanks. If you are on YouTube, we would ask that you please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. If you are on our Twitch channel, make sure that you follow us on Twitch. You can also watch without ads on Twitch by subscribing to us there. We have a shop, and that's at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com. We have all kinds of merchandise there, including tools for magic, and we make a small commission off of each and every sale. We appreciate your support. But as usual, what we mostly appreciate is that you're here today with us. We're going to go over first steps in Psalm magic today, just because I noticed we have an old video called First Steps in Psalm Magic, and oh my gosh, it is so old and so sort of bad. And it was even before I had published my booklet, so I thought we would give that a little facelift here, and we'll just take an opportunity to do that. So let's get going on that. The book of Psalms is a book that's contained in the ancient Hebrew Bible, or sometimes known as the Old Testament in Christian faith. And they're ancient writings. And many people attribute these ancient writings to King David. And some people have scholarly decided that King David wrote most of them, and others were written by other characters in the Bible. But there's absolutely zero evidence to completely support anybody's claim of authorship for any one psalm, any of the psalms. So the truth is that no one really knows where the actual origin of the Psalms are, but there is definitive proof that the Psalms as we know them were taken from older source material. There's 150 Psalms included in the Hebrew Bible. And the word psalm is actually derived from a Greek word called psalmos, which simply means a song that's accompanied by a plucked instrument, such as a lyre or a harp. And the ancient Hebrews referred to the Psalms as songs of praise. From a magical point of view, we look at the Psalms probably differently than many religious people do. Religions use the Psalms differently than magicians do. We look at the Psalm book, the book of Psalms, magical people, magicians and witches, look at the book of Psalms as a magical text. And it has a very long history as a magical text. In fact, you will be hard-pressed to find any other book that has been used by a greater amount of people, of a greater variety of cultures or magical traditions than the Book of Psalms. Many witches who use the Psalms, especially in traditional witchcraft, not so much Wicca, but traditional witchcraft, call the Book of Psalms the spell book of the Bible. Now, I learned a specific psalmic tradition. It's a very simple tradition. And I don't know of any book that's really been written that covers the tradition as I learned it, which is why I decided to write my booklet so that I could share this with people. There's a common belief in our tradition, as I was taught, our tradition of psalm magic, that the Psalms actually predate the Bible. And the tradition holds that the Psalms were probably derived from source material that's much older, and that those spells, incantations, and prayers were probably from an ancient culture such as Egypt or maybe Chaldea or one of those earlier Semitic cultures or even pre-Semitic cultures. It's also important to recognize that in the Psalm tradition, at least as I teach and practice it, the Book of Psalms is seen as a self-contained book, not necessarily part of the Bible, but something that happened to be included in the Bible. And it also, this tradition holds that the Book of Psalms was probably rewritten to support the theology that is outlined in the rest of the Hebrew Bible. So you can see when you're going and working the Psalms that some of the Psalms were not stepped on as much as others were and are hearkening back to an ancient, even polytheistic religious experience. The tradition that I follow claims that the older versions of the Psalms were appropriated and then co-opted and incorporated by the ancient Hebrews to reflect the characters within that tradition. So our psalmic tradition teaches that within each and every verse of each and every psalm, there are mystical and magical powers. But these powers act like seeds. And when we work the Psalms diligently, these seeds can actually grow and produce fruits that magically address any problem or condition and solve any problem and assist in obtaining any, quote, righteous desire of the heart. Our tradition is very clear that there's a difference between working the Psalms as magic and praying the Psalms religiously. So praying the Psalms religiously might be something like supplicating to a deity. Usually that deity in religions are seen as something that's separate, something that's distinct from the person praying. And the Psalms thusly are used as part of religious devotion. And usually the people that pray in this way believe that some external deity is going to grant them some sort of favor or mercy or help them in some way. But in magic, when we use Psalms, it's different. We don't view things that way. We view the Psalm as a spell. And the Lord, as it's called in the Psalms, is seen as the Godhead, the power source, or the force. You could almost even think of the force as is depicted in the Star Wars mythology. We see that this force is pre-gender. It's the life force itself of the entire universe. There's no opposite to this force. It is the one source of all power. And it's not bound by any religion, by any dogma, by any creed, or any practice. And this force is viewed as not being separate from the practitioner, but we see ourselves as an extension of this power. So rather than concerning ourselves with so much about the history of the Psalms, what we really do in this tradition is look for effectiveness, magical effectiveness. So it doesn't matter, if the scholars find proof that no, the Hebrews really did write these and they didn't come from an older source. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter one bit, because we look at a tradition as being a context for our magic, and we know that it works. So what matters is whether it works. Results are our proof. So if we follow simple guidelines as outlined in the tradition, and as I'm going to outline for you, and as I outlined in my booklet, then you will also have magical effectiveness. So to work, there we go. So to work psalm magic, you don't need anything but a psalm. Now, it doesn't matter where you read the psalm from. You can read it from a Bible. You can read it from a book of Psalms. You can read it from an app on your phone. You could read it scribbled on the back of a receipt. It doesn't matter where you find the psalm. And a lot of times you will see a lot of rituals that are incorporated in psalm magic, such as candles, incenses, talismans, herbs, washes, hidden secret God names, all kinds of stuff is oftentimes used. And many times psalm practitioners who claim to be working psalm magic will tell you or try to convince you that unless you know their little secret gizmos, that the psalms won't have the power for you. And that's not true. You do not need anything but the psalm itself. Now, you can use other things, absolutely. That's one cool thing about the psalms as a magical system, is you can incorporate anything you want with them and they'll be just as effective. But you can use nothing but the psalm and they'll still be just as effective. It's really up to your preference and up to your aesthetic and what makes you feel best. There's no restrictions whatsoever to using rituals or perfumes or talismans. You can do anything like that you want to, but you don't have to. Now, in my booklet, and I'll show you how to get the booklet and how to use the booklet in a minute, you're going to find a list of traditional uses for each of the psalms. This is not exhaustive. These are just a couple of little ideas to get you started. There are so many different ways that each psalm can be used and have been used. And the secret that a lot of people either don't know about or don't want you to know about is that ultimately any psalm can be used for any purpose. I'm going to say that again. Any psalm can ultimately be used for any purpose. This means that you don't have to worry that you chose the wrong psalm. Now, every psalm will eventually get you to where you need to go. Some psalms are going to get you there in a more direct manner. So if you're looking for prosperity, if you find a psalm that deals with prosperity, you're going to get there faster and more directly. But if you just open the book to any place and you read that psalm and you work it properly like I'm going to teach you how to do, you'll still get you where you need to go. You might just take the scenic route. So do not worry about finding the wrong psalm. Any psalm can ultimately be used. What you do need, though, is to work the psalm rather than just read the psalm. A lot of people believe that the words themselves have some sort of magical power, and if they recite them, especially in a very dramatic tone of voice, that somehow the vibrations are going to go move out and make things happen for them. And that's not how it works, at least not the way that it was taught to me. It's much more sophisticated than that. The psalms must be worked in a two-step process called the psalm magic formula, and it's a very simple formula. Step number 1 is you read your chosen psalm all the way through without stopping out loud. Now, we call that the incantation. Now, if for some reason you're in a place where you can't read out loud, you can read it silently, but in your mind, try to hear it as if it was being spoken out loud. So that's your first step. The second step is that you go back through the psalm. You read through it again very slowly, verse by verse, and you search, dig, find, and contemplate any hidden occult meanings within each verse. You contemplate how these hidden meanings might apply to the particular spell that you're working. And through this process of digging, searching, and finding and applying, that is how the great magic of this tradition actually works. Not just through the reading of it, although that is an important part of it, but it's through the second step. So I view each and every psalm as containing an infinite packet, or infinite packets. I view each and every psalm as containing infinite packets of magical seeds that, once planted into the fertile ground of our deep minds by using this formula, will take root, grow, blossom forth, and then bear fruit after their own kind. And like any effective magic, it is done through the reconditioning of your deep mind. And so the way that you recondition your deep mind is through the process of repetition. That means that you keep reworking this spell with the same psalm each and every day, sometimes even multiple times a day, until I used to say see definite movement in the condition, but I would say that it's actually only necessary that you work until you get a sense of peace and certainty, even if you don't see movement yet. If you get a sense of peace and certainty about the situation, then you know that the spell has taken. And this is an indication to you that the manifestation is at hand. And then you can stop working. So I'm going to show you how to find the book and how to use the book. And like I said, in the book, you're going to find a list of traditional psalm uses. And you'll also find a list of some of the symbols used in the psalms that can help you find the hidden occult meanings. But if you get stuck, because there are an infinite amount of seeds, so there's no book that's ever going to be able to show you all of them. If you get stuck and you don't know, you just calm your mind and you ask that your inner guidance direct you and lead you. And you'll find exactly what you need to find each and every time. So what you can do is you can go onto arielgatoga.com/psalmbook if you don't have this booklet. It's arielgatoga.com/psalmbook, and you're going to get this landing page. And all you have to do is fill this out. You just put your first name and your email address. Then you'll get a little email that says to confirm, and you don't respond to the email to confirm. You click the little confirm button in the email, and then you'll be sent an email with a link to the psalm book. And what you'll get is, let me find it here. What you'll get is this booklet, and it'll teach you all about the Psalms. And then you will get this list of each and every psalm and some suggested uses for each and every psalm. And then you'll get a list of some words that you might find in the Psalms that will help you to understand. Like, well, I wonder what Babylon means. It means a city of confusion, thought forms within one's mind which cause confusion. Wonder what it means when it's talking about Egypt. Egypt in this sense usually means materialism or consciousness of the body only and nothing outside of our body. Why is feet being talked about so much in the psalm? Feet represents possibly understanding, etc. So there's just a few. I mean, this is not exhaustive. This is just a few of the words that you might find in there, and there will be many, many others. In addition to all of these wonderful things in this booklet, you will see that there are some psalm collections that are recommended. Now, the main three collections that we talk about are the contractual psalms. There's 5 of those. And the contractual psalms are basically the mini psalm book. You can pretty much work get anything you need from just those 5 psalms. Those are really the meat and potatoes or the bread and butter of the psalm book. You would do well just by really working with those 5 psalms. So there's 23, 24, 27, 46, and 91. Then there's another set of psalms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 psalms called the purification psalms. These are very important psalms because if you can work this collection, you will usually be able to eliminate negative conditions in your life, no matter what they are. And then there's the Psalms of Gratitude. Now, Psalm 150 as a Psalm of Gratitude is extremely important in psalm magic because that's the one that's traditionally worked each and every time you get some success in your psalm work. But then is also, in this particular collection, Psalm 66 is also included, and that's a bit longer of a psalm. Now, you can also go to my website at ariels-corner.com. And if you click on the Psalm Magic, you'll see a drop down here. Go to this Psalm Collections tab, and you'll see that there's other Psalm collections. So we put the contractual psalms in there, the purification psalms, but then we've got the golden psalms, the ascension psalms. There's 3 psalms of restitution. There's those 2 gratitude psalms for gratitude for magical success, but then there's some other psalms of gratitude in here as well that you can work. I've got a list of the prosperity psalms, the healing psalms, psalms of protection, and there's even some psalms for employment. And I'm adding more and more psalm collections each and every week. So just keep checking back there. Just one thing that you want to make sure of, whether you're opening this on your iPad, iPhone, or desktop, that if there's more than 5 psalms in a collection, make sure to look that you understand that there's more psalms than are just at first displayed. That way we don't have too many spaces. So make sure that you scroll through some of these to find all the psalms. Right. Also, if you go to my website, you can see on this called Basic Psalm Magic, the psalm formula is given you there, as well as the collection. And then you can find that there's this other tab called the Psalmic Initiatory Path, and it sends you to a blog post on the Psalmic Initiatory Path. You can also read about the Psalmic Initiatory Path in the booklet. So I would definitely download that booklet if psalm magic is something that is interesting for you. In our shop, you can also look for psalm books under Tools for Magic. I believe that's where they are, psalm books. And we have a nice collection of psalm books here. This one here is out of print, and it's one of my favorites. I got this from the Metropolitan Museum of Art store back in the 80s. That's why it's so sort of like it's been used a lot. But it's out of print, but we have some used editions available for as cheap as $13. And then there's some other wonderful psalm books that I use as well, if you want a book of psalms rather than reading them out of a Bible or off of an app. All right, so let's talk really quickly about the Psalmic Initiatory Path. And then, let me find it here. Sorry for that. So the Psalmic Initiatory Path, anybody that knows anything about magic, now I've done a longer lecture on the Psalmic Initiatory Path that you can find on my YouTube channel, but just to kind of get into it a little bit, the Psalmic Initiatory Path, in magic, initiation is often a very important thing. And in many magical traditions, there are degrees of initiation. And those initiations are different parts of our mind are opened, and there's like little buttons that are pressed in our consciousness that have been dormant for our lives to enlighten us in certain ways. And so going through specific initiations gives us access to deeper and deeper occult knowledge than what we had before. The problem with magical initiation is that the bulk of the schools that provide it don't really cater to self-initiation or self-study, and the ones that claim to usually aren't very effective. So, and then there's a lot of places that do have membership available in their quote initiatory path, but the initiatory path is kind of bogus. So it's sometimes really hard to find an authentic initiatory path, especially if you want to be self-study and you don't want to join something. A lot of these paths will put what we call blinds, magical blinds, B-L-I-N-D-S, like you're blind to something. And a blind is simply concepts or practices that have been intentionally presented incorrectly so that only people that are, quote, in the know will be able to see. And those blinds either severely limit or completely abolish the effectiveness of the magic if they're not corrected. But the psalmic initiatory path has no blinds. So if you're looking for an authentic initiatory path that will give you the benefits of magical initiation, this may be something that you're interested in, especially if you don't have access to a group or are not interested in joining a group. The psalmic initiatory path, just like all psalm magic, is very simple. There are 150 psalms in this book, and Psalm 119 has 22 sub-psalms. So you can look at Psalm 19 as if it's 22 separate psalms. So that's a lot of psalms. The psalmic initiatory path states that you work the psalm formula on each and every psalm in the book, all 150, including all the sub-psalms of Psalm 119. You can either work those all together or one at a time. Now, you're supposed to only work a maximum of one psalm per day to be included in the path. And each time you work a psalm from the book, you check it off. You just keep a list and you check off that psalm. Once you've gotten through all 150 psalms in the book, it's considered to be a single degree of initiation. Now again, this isn't just chattering off incantations and reading the psalm through and rushing through it. It's taking and working that psalm formula on the psalm. So once you get through all 150, that's considered a single degree of initiation. I always take a whole year to get through 1 degree of an initiation. You can go a little faster if you want to, but try not to have the goal of getting your first degree in 150 days. That's rushing things. Really take your time. Really take your time. Sometimes you're going to be guided to stay on a psalm for more than one day. And you want to follow that guidance because it's not so much getting the degree, it's getting the degree in reality, not on paper. So the only way to get the degree in reality is to actually get the benefits of each and every psalm that you're working. And each time that you get a degree in this psalmic initiatory path, you will notice that your power has increased quite a bit. Remember that the Psalms are not owned by any one group or religion. Anybody, whether they are of a religion or no religion, can work them. You do not have to ascribe to any religious faith, not Judaism, not Christianity, not Islam, not Wicca, not anything. You can work psalm magic no matter who you are, even if you're an atheist, even if you're a Satanist, it doesn't matter. The Psalms are there for you. The Psalms don't care. They just want to help you. That's their only purpose and function is to help you. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, and it just left me. Oh, yes. The one thing that I notice that I get the feedback on a lot is people say, well, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to work this, but I just don't like Christian stuff. And they're just too Christian for me, the Psalms. I'd like to remind you that even if you believe that King David wrote the Psalms, that would put the Psalms as being very, very pre-Christian, centuries older than Christianity. But it's probably a great deal older than David. So the Psalms are probably the most ancient magical book that we have access to. Much more ancient than the Keys of Solomon, much more ancient than Picatrix, much more ancient than any other magical text. So if you're looking for ancient magic, you can't find anything more ancient in print than the book of Psalms. It's just that the Psalms don't come right out and say, hey, magic book. In fact, it's where some of the magic was hidden. It was hidden inside of a religious book where people would probably never look for it. They wouldn't look to open their Bible to find a spell book, but there it is. So just remind yourself, if you're attracted to the work of psalm magic and you think, it's a little Christian. No, it's not. Christians have appropriated and they use it and they're welcome to it, but they did not come up with it. It's not a Christian book, and it's probably not a Jewish book either. It's probably predates that as well. So it's open to you if you want it. It's a very powerful system of magic. Some people get the misunderstanding, though, when I come out with psalm magic, that they think that I think that if you don't work psalms, you're not going to have as much effectiveness. That's not true either. You don't need them. You can work any system of magic you want. But if you're wanting the psalms, they are open to you no matter who you are, what you believe, and what you don't believe. So I hope this has helped you get started on the Book of Psalms. Remember that you can download your very own booklet on it called How to Work Psalm Magic by going to arielgatoga.com/psalmbook. Again, that's arielgatoga.com/psalmbook. There is no charge for this book. It is my gift to you. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. Until next time, blessed be. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. What translation of the Psalms is this book? King James or a more modern version? This book, and the ones that I read with and that I like the most, are the authorized King James version. So that's the one that's the oldest of the King James versions. I like it. It gets my magical juices flowing. It's very Shakespearean in tone. But also the translation conventions are very, very coherent. So if you usually with King James, they always translate one thing as another. There's not a lot of variation. Some of the more modern translations take a lot of liberties from the Hebrew. And so the reason why I don't like some of the modern translations is not because they're not good. It's just that they miss some of the magic seeds. They miss some of them by trying to decide what this means for the reader. So, and especially the ones that are trying to do the Bible in plain English or simple English translations. A lot of those miss a lot of the symbols. They miss a lot of the seeds. So I prefer the King James Version just because the translation conventions are very consistent. There are some issues with the King James Version, and you can, that's true for any translation. But what you can do is look up the Psalms in Hebrew and compare word for word, just to see what was actually being said. But the problem with that is a lot of times people say, oh, well, then I'll just use a word for word translation. The problem with that is that you miss syntax. You miss the syntax, and sometimes the syntax is more important than the word. So that's one of the other reasons why I just love the King James Version. The authorized King James Version especially is because it has a nice poetic feel to it, and it's very, very consistent. So if it says God, I know it means Elohim. If it says Lord, I know it means Yod He Vav He. If there's certain things. Even if you're looking for Kabbalistic references, the Kabbalistic names are always translated specifically. You know that if it says glory, it's usually talking about Hod. But you can always look that up. You can always look that up and make sure. So that's why I like it. But you can use anything you like. You really can. There's so many seeds in there that even if you don't get all of them, that's okay. You'll get what you need. But try to use the more standard translations. If you don't like King James, at least use its standard translation, not one of the real dumbed down versions. That's the problem, is if they dumb it down too much, then you lose a lot of the magic. Doesn't look like we have any other questions, but that was a really good question. I appreciate you asking. And so this is going to get edited, and I'll put it up and get rid of that old how to get started with Psalm Magic video. There was a bunch of little sheets in a binder that don't even exist anymore. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you to the amazing moderators. Today we had Dre and Chad on YouTube, and I'm sorry that I didn't mention this before. I think I got lost in my train of thought. But on YouTube we have Dre and Chad, and on Twitch we have Jason. So thank you, Dre, Chad, and Jason, for all your amazing work. And thank you all so very much for being here today. And I will be back tomorrow. We are finishing up Kabbalah over the next few weeks, and then we're going to be doing some other really cool stuff. So I hope you join us on Thrilling Thursdays for the next few weeks, because we're going to be working on some really cool stuff. So thank you so much for being here, and we will see you tomorrow. Blessed be.